So I'm gonna kind of launch into this, and my hope is that it's kind of informal and it's a discussion, it's a thought process. If at any point you just want to blurb in, um, uh, interrupt via audio or via chat, just feel free to. I'd like it to be completely open in that way. And then everything, I'll try to post everything. Obviously, it'll be available to you, and we'll just kind of work our way through it like this. So, yeah, this is a session, and I called it Best Practices in Remote and Blended Learning, Lessons from Pedagogy in a Pandemic. And where this stemmed from is that our regional leadership sort of had asked me to make some comments and do some exploration of just what's going on and where we are as a province. In terms of remote learning. I went away for March break, and when I came back, all of a sudden I realized that things were going to be really crazy because there was going to be so many teachers getting their shop set up with remote learning. And then as we started to learn more about, sort of COVID-19 and the way that things work with that, it was pretty clear that this is something that we don't know like how long it could last. We don't know if it could come back. We don't know if we're going to be put in these situations again. So I thought it might be prudent to do a little bit of action research in some of the stuff that I did and start tracking some data and some information and some things that were working within the niche of our province. So that's sort of where this comes from. So just to give you a gist of where this comes from, and can everybody see the presentation here, like the little fellow reading a book with his leg up? You can see that? Okay. So kind of the gist here is this is going to be a look back at the weird third term from our careers. We're going to discuss and reflect on ways to approach uncertainty, look at emergent research in the area of remote and blended learning within the context of the pandemic, and how can we build capacity through the alignment of best practices using digital tools. So this is kind of just a way to think about, how are we going to get started in September? We know where we're going to be in September. We know how it's going to start in September, but we don't really know how it's going to play out. Okay, so it's just a way to consider that. And as with any type of PD I do, even though I work obviously regionally, I really have worked hard in the last few years trying to build a professional learning network with teachers across the province. And my hope is that this is the start of a conversation that could continue. If there's stuff in this presentation that you're interested in, it's my hope that this isn't just a one-off sit and get kind of thing. That if there's something you want to build or explore, or develop. That we can continue with that, and I'll talk about how important those collegial relationships are in this context. So just to give you a little intro, so my name is Adam Hinton. I work as a technology integration specialist within CCRC. And just a couple little bits of information. Like I said, I started to really track the data from technology integration support during our time sort of forced into remote learning. From March to June, I worked with over 300 teachers directly in developing their remote learning plans, supported lots of virtual PD, helped to build and design classroom learning hubs, so via Seesaw or Google Classroom. I started in April surveying teachers on their practices, really trying to figure out a sense of what is just not working, what is really working, what are students responding to, what are families responding to. And as the months went on, I started noticing I was becoming the middleman sometimes between teachers and parents, or teachers and students. And I really tried to cut out that middleman, because it's just frustrating to pass information along to a teacher on how to fix a problem. So I started working with some families and some students directly in achieving remote learning goals. So all of this is to say, when we don't really know what the future holds in terms of our educational paradigm, it was kind of important to start collecting as much information as possible. So this is sort of where this information comes from, is an exploration of this data and some external research. I do want to acknowledge, though, that there's elephants in the room with this whole situation, and I might talk. I mean, I'm always sort of accused of being a kind of idealistic, positive person, and I like to see the utopian side of things. But I'm keenly aware that this isn't what we want, this kind of situation, this kind of thinking. We don't want to have to worry about these kinds of considerations. It's not certainly what our students need. They don't need to be distanced and worry about remote learning and have their all these good educational scenarios compromised. And it is obviously completely unpredictable. It's very, very hard. This is, if ever there was a house of cards in our career, this is it. We have no idea what happens and how scenarios are going to unfold. So I just want to kind of put that all on the table. There are certainly challenges with all of this. Okay, so that being said, I do want to talk a little bit about some research, what we know. Remote learning and blended learning it's not a new concept. It's not something that just appeared on the scene because of COVID-19. There's certainly been remote learning context before. However, mass remote learning, complete remote learning environments is a new thing for us. So I think it's very good to look at the research on what works best in this situation. And I guess the first thing I want to sort of put out there is that technology by itself doesn't really do much to improve learning. And I don't love this fact because I'm a technology integration specialist, and I certainly would like all the attention to be on digital tools and technology and that being sort of the savior of humanity. But it doesn't really cut it. You put computers in front of students, you put games in front of students, you put robots in front of students. It's not going to make them smarter, more successful, more learned. There's something else. So just to go back, this is I'm drawing on some research here from this. This is sort of effect sizes. A lot of the research is done by John Hattie. It sort of came out of the 90s from Albert Bandura's research on efficacy. It's a bunch of meta-analyses on what works best in education. And when you see these numbers here, like 0.57, 0.75, 0.88, all that stuff, those are effect sizes. And just to kind of really boil it down to simplicity, if something has an effect size in education of 0.4, that's worth like 1. So 0.40, that's like 1 year of teaching, 1 year of effectiveness. Okay, so that's like your break even. It works over 1 year. If something has like an effect size of 1.0, well, that's a demonstration of achievement by like 2 or 3 years that can be done in 1 year. So what I'm saying is the higher the effect size, the bigger bang for your buck in a year. So if we look at this research, you can see if we just look at pure old digital tools. All right. If you look at, using technology with students with learning needs, technology and subjects, interactive video, gaming simulations, online digital tools, they have kind of just a moderate effect size. You're not really getting anything, expansive from those. But what you do get is if you focus on, excellent practices in instruction and assessment, okay, you can see things like intervention for students with learning needs, classroom discussion, micro teaching or video review of lessons, teacher clarity, teacher estimates of achievement, and then the big one. This is the one that I'm going to kind of hammer a little bit here: collective teacher efficacy. That's the number one thing. You can get 3, 4, 5 years of achievement in a single year if you have an institution that's built around collective teacher efficacy. So my thing to think about here is I'm going to be talking about digital tools, but I'm going to be talking about them in conjunction with best teaching practices. So the idea is about aligning best practices with digital tools to have the big effect. So the secret, again, of blended learning, it's not having good tools. It's not using the best program. It's using the best instructional or assessment strategy in alignment with a good tool. So that's just kind of the point I want to hammer at. And I'm finding it is, am I going way too fast here? Is the pace okay? Am I making sense? Just fire off something in the chat if it's good pacing, all good. Okay. All right, perfect. I don't know my speed when I'm drinking coffee, so it could be anywhere. This is another, just a quick little infographic from Hattie, and he talks about some things that, these are some things that work best in a learning community with remote instruction. Having good content, media, games, having a space for reflection, a blog, journal, some socio-emotional considerations, face-to-face teaching, tutoring. Just I don't want to go too deep into this, but I kind of like this little infographic of just some things that you can pepper into your instruction when considering blended or remote instruction. So that's some of the research, and again, that idea is we're thinking about best practices in conjunction with best tools. So I do want to talk a little bit about the Nova Scotian context, and the idea here is this is just some anecdotes and some stories and some things that we saw in our province, some observations that I made in working with teachers on some things that were working well, or some things that were noticed. So a couple things that, if I was to boil down a lot of the conversations and the data that I collected, here's some of the key findings. One, relationships with students and parents are evolving. And obviously, it's not perfect. And I know that if you were doing remote learning in the last few months, you certainly probably didn't have 100%, participation from parents. You probably had some families that you couldn't get in contact with. However, what we did notice is that I don't know, when I started teaching, it felt like the relationship between parents and teachers was separating a little bit, right? And I think that has a lot of cultural factors and historical factors built into it. But I think during the pandemic, that kind of gap started to close up again, and we saw a lot of instances of teachers working really closely with parents, having some really hard conversations, doing some troubleshooting, finding out just individual needs of the students, and really kind of working together as a team with the families. And really, the issue arose because our classrooms became their homes. So that was a consideration that we had to think about. Your classroom is not a physical environment in a school building anymore. It's in a series of individual homes with individual contexts and families. Two, what we found, everybody started setting up learning hubs, Google Classrooms or Seesaws or shared slideshows or things like that. And the thing that we kind of quickly figured out is that some teachers were putting all kinds of information on there, everything that they could think of. It was disorganized, it was chaotic, it was overwhelming, and parents were saying, like, I can't do this. Teachers were feeling overwhelmed by it. Students were just not able to make any sense of the space. So the learning hubs that were successful, or the course correction that teachers were able to successfully do, is making minimalistic learning hubs, making something that's purposeful, that's simplistic, that's easy to follow, that doesn't inundate students with information, that's very clear and clean. Very, very important, and a lot of success came out of that. UDL, more important than ever. We are really shifting to a universal design and learning mindset. It's hard sometimes to wrap your head around what that means when you can't be in the physical presence of your students. However, designing tasks and finding ways to individualize programming for students, finding ways to individualize local projects that they can work on, things that they can work on at their own pace is absolutely necessary. And I saw teachers do a lot of really neat things from that perspective. And then formative assessment habits have to be developed kind of early and often. And I think, as we go into September, not knowing like exactly what is going to happen, what it's going to look like, you're going to want to design some really quick formative assessment strategies that you can easily flip into a digital space. How can you have small group instruction in a virtual way? How can you meet with a small team, a small group, or individually one-on-one? So these are the things that some teachers were able to figure out really quickly and have a lot of success in terms of getting good assessment habits. So this is a big wall of text, I know. I just want to go through 3 really quick anecdotes here. I won't dwell on them too much. These are some stories directly from our region of teachers and their experiences in the starting up with remote learning. Okay, so this one here, it's about Miss C, and she began her first day back. This is after March break, starting from scratch. She had no Google Classroom set up, no real knowledge of where to start or how best to connect with her students in the new distance-based environment. She did know prior to the pandemic that all of her students were meeting and working regularly in small group instruction environments, and she wanted to retain that support system. And she said, I started by reaching out to parents frequently to set up a plan and a routine that works best for everybody. What we've become now is just a tight group trying to make this work for everybody's situation. We problem solve, we laugh, and we set goals regularly. They, the parents, are my eyes on the ground for teaching, and I'm their support network for sustaining learning at home. It's not perfect, but we're connected as best we can be. So again, a big part of September, whether we're fully in the classroom for 100% of the year or whether we have some type of mixture of in and out of the classroom, who knows what's going to happen, setting up relationship and connections and communication lines with parents is going to be utterly important. And it's not, it's a consideration that you should have a plan for. You should know how to put it in. And I've got a little note here. The deeper our relationships are with families, the more effective our remote learning can be. It is going to be a team effort because, like I said, the environment of the classroom could very well be, each individual household of your students at some point this year, as it was last year. So maybe and I've got some kind of thoughtful questions on here, but just a little reflection here, like what strategies or think to yourself, what strategies can you put in place to build family, student, and communication in September? What can you do to ensure that you have good open lines of communication from the get-go? Any comments on that little anecdote before I move on? I don't want to blab too much here. Okay, I've got tepid silence. I'll take that as a move on. All right. This one's talking a little bit about how I mentioned about having minimalistic learning hubs. Yeah. I see. Sorry, Patricia. I see. Yeah, the right contact information. Yeah, you want to have your power teacher information updated. You want to have know what the best way to get in touch with them is. Can you text them? Should you email them? What's the individual strategy for each individual student? Some parents hate getting text messages. Some will only take text messages. Some will only take Facebook conversations. So this one, minimalistic learning hubs. Introduce yourself, make yourself approachable. Yeah, share social media platforms. All parents have emails and passwords. Yeah, definitely. I used to do one thing, and my students used to really like in September. It was called A Million Words or Less. And I would tell the students on like the first day, I'd say, okay, listen, I'm going to give some homework, but it's not for you, it's for your parents. And it would be this little letter saying like, in 1,000,000 words or less, tell me about your child. And you would basically ask the parents to write you a letter about everything that you think that they needed they needed you to know as the teacher of their child. And you know, I would get these beautiful letters back, and it was just a really great way to kind of cut through that association, you know, getting to know the students better in the start of the year. Yeah, Gina. Okay, that's good. You've done it as well. It's pretty cool. If you just Google a million words or less, I think there's a bunch of kind of pre-made templates for it right online. It's a fun activity, and the kids kind of laugh at it because you're giving their parents homework. Okay. So Miss K, she's a lower elementary teacher. She's designed a Google Classroom with 3 sections: a weekly overview video, this week's work, and previous assignments. Fixed at the top of her classroom is the video recorded on Screencastify explaining the week's work, each assignment, expectations, and troubleshooting. This serves as a central guidepost for both students and parents. In this week's work section, Ms. K posted a 3-page PDF of choice boards, one for math, one for literacy, one for life skills, socio-emotional learning. Also included in this section may be a weekly activity from the music or phys ed teacher. At the end of the week, all the work is moved into the previous assignment section so as to keep the space clear, uncluttered, and easy to find information. So again, and depending on the age level you teach as well, but I think for anybody, you want a clean interface. You want something that is simple to use. There's no, it's no secret as to why, you know, this iPhone is, you know, one of the best-selling objects of all time. It's designed around Zen principles, where there's one button, right? There's one button that turns it on. There's one button for the volume. It's very elegant. It's simple. It's easy to use. My mother, who is hopeless, she doesn't even really know how to put an ATM card into the machine, can use her iPhone with ease. Little children can pick up an iPad and use it very simply. So our brains love and crave information, but they also enjoy simplistic delivery models. So if you're able to design a classroom that has a minimal amount of sections, particularly if you're in a remote learning context and you can't sit there and explain to students where to go or directly show them, having something simple, you know, an introductory video on what you want them to do that week, a section for the work, and a section of all the previous assignments, so you can drag old stuff down. It will make it nice and clean and clear for them. And we saw over and over and over again the problem, you know, talking to students and families, I can't find this assignment. I'm not sure where it is. It's nested within 3 or 4 places. Too much complexity was frustrating. And so, like, I've got this little quote up here: the most effective classroom hubs have been the ones designed with minimalism at their core. Okay, clarity and communication is extremely important. It's important for instruction. It's important for assessment. So again, just another little reflection, and maybe I'll kind of throw this to the chat if you want. So what kind of routines or tools can you put in place to ensure that your blended learning environment is rooted in clarity? Again, I'll give a bit of a pregnant pause for anybody's ideas. Feedback from on the ground parties. Yeah, I mean, yeah, actually, feedback is so important. You should be constantly asking, you know, parents and students, like, does this make sense? Do you know how to navigate this? Is it what can I do? What can I do better? Video tutorials for parents. We got so many requests for videos for parents, you know, videos for parents on what apps to use, on how to do certain things on Google Classroom or in a Google document. Yeah, like having some information for parents as well. The parents are really, by extension, our students as well in situations like this. A weekly Google form check-in. Yeah, yeah. And I think that constant touching base, you know, is important. Having a touchstone, like an introductory video on the top of your page explaining exactly what needs to go down this week is important. Where we're starting in person, starting as close to day 1 with students on how to use the tech. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, Mary, but I think in this context, even though I mean, this is coming from a place of greed because I want everybody using as much, you know, technology as possible. The earlier, the better. The more you can use it, the better. The more you can get them comfortable with it, the easier a transition would be in a forced remote learning scenario. Okay, and this is the last anecdote. I'm just gonna zip right into it. This is about small group instruction from a distance. Mrs. P teaches at a middle school level. She began a remote learning process by writing a number of individual, precise, and raw emails to parents in order to establish where everyone was coming from and develop a strategy for accommodating all learners. She divided her classroom into a number of small groups and set up a weekly Google Meet for students. Their meet time would be the same each week so as to establish a routine. During this time, she would work with students in a small group environment on targeted tasks. Also during these meetings, she would review individualized plans. She said, we do a check-in and discuss how things are going. Last week, we did a lesson on how to use a protractor. Then I take the time to review with them their weekly assignments. I also spend a part of the conversation on common questions as well as working with technical issues. Mrs. Pease has weathered the turbulence of remote learning by focusing on building firm routines, individualized learning tasks, and having consistent small group instruction, as well as regular parent communication. And I saw a number of instances of teachers not doing whole class instruction or doing whole class instruction every now and then, but then shifting to a small group instruction mode. They got much more effective work, communication, and support out of their students and with their students when they were able to be into small groups. It was a little harder to set up. It was a little more time consuming, but they this teacher in particular that's in this anecdote really wanted to retain the small group environment. And the point I got up here, just as we can shape learning experiences around individuals in our classrooms, we can also replicate this experience remotely by starting our process with UDL as a non-negotiable. So you're thinking about your students and where they are, and you're designing small groups, you're designing activities around that. And I'll talk about some of the ways that we can use tools digitally and remotely to, can give start from that place of where are the students at as individuals, not as a whole class. Okay, and again, just what something to consider, think about, what applications, and you've been going to the Learning Academy for the last few days, so maybe you have an idea of what are some of the applications you need to explore and learn a little bit more about their depths based on your instructional needs, and what practices do you need to develop in the instance of another sudden remote learning environment. So this is just kind of this is a metacognitive philosophical question. What is it that you kind of internally need to work on to grow and support yourself in the uneventful case of another remote learning thing next year? Just something to kind of think about internally. Okay, so putting that all together, giving you a sense of some of the research, some of the data on what works, the fact that digital tools by themselves are not really that effective, or there's just a baseline effective, and knowing some of the things that teachers have been doing successfully in our province, I want to talk a little bit about aligning good tools with good teaching, and really hammer home the fact that the core focus has to be on good teaching, not just digital tools. Yeah, Ashley, Pear Deck, is that your presentation tomorrow? The Pear Deck is one of my favorite tools, and I've seen some teachers do some crazy cool stuff with it. They've done entire units in a single Pear Deck slideshow, and that's their entire assessment for a unit is all contained in one space. There's some amazing stuff you can do, and it's students are very, very engaged by Pear Deck. It's really, really fun if you've never used it before. Okay, so I generally always, when I'm talking about technology integration, my kind of focus is on 5 things, and I'm a little bit narrow-minded, because if a tool doesn't really have it, most of these things, I'm not overly interested in using it. Just because I try to align everything with our inclusion policy, with our renewed curriculum, and with best practices in teaching. So I'm always looking for digital tools that are able to be adapted for UDL and accessibility. I'm looking for ones that provide deep student engagement. It's no secret that I don't think teachers are necessarily the best teachers in the world right now. I think the best teachers in the world right now are video games like Fortnite and programs like TikTok and things that are very engaging, that elicit passion in people, that people want to go back to and return to and really engage with. So I'm always looking for things that are engaging to students, that sort of leverage their hearts and minds in the right direction, because we are really competing with some pretty powerful stuff that's way more interesting than we are. I always look for things that are ease of use for teachers, things that are not going to be crazy complicated. I think teaching in a classroom is an extremely complex and hard job, and there's constantly stuff being thrown at you and tossed at you. So I'm always looking for stuff that you can take on, the next day after it's shown to you, or start building small with it. I always want things that are multidisciplinary or skills oriented, things that apply to more than one subject. This is for you, Brian. We're moving to a kind of a skills-based curriculum in our province. I'm very mindful and supportive of that initiative and focusing on skills over just mere content mastery. So what are ways that we can build those skills in our students? And the last one, and probably the most important, is things that have rich potential for formative assessment, things that allow for really good conversation, really good observation, really good feedback, and ways to course correct and to self-regulate and to support students in driving their learning forward. So I'm always looking for those things. So another thing, if I was to kind of be pinned to the ground and ask kind of the essentials of good teaching or good educational pedagogy, and this kind of touches upon some of the findings that I mentioned earlier. One, I think that clarity in your intent and communication is absolutely important. You have to be very clear, and you have to have something that people can digest and look at and understand and engage with immediately. Inclusive programming with high expectations is very important. We are constantly working to be a more inclusive system in our province. We have a new inclusion policy, which I think addresses a lot of possibilities and potentials. But we also have to have very high expectations with our students. And if we were to go back to some of Hattie's research, high expectations has a very high efficacy. And when you have strong, high expectations for your students, your low, your medium, your high achieving students, you will get success out of all of them. Embedded formative assessment. So if you are able to have formative assessment opportunities in a multivariate way, that's very essential to your teaching. And the last one, which I don't know if we always think about this as much, is you need to have a nourishing community. And I'll talk a little bit more about all of these, especially that one at the end. And I really don't think that you can thrive and achieve if you don't have a nourishing community. And some of you might be sitting there being like, well, my school is they're sort of negative people, and I don't have that. Well, I'll talk a little bit about all that in a bit. Okay, some of the tools, and maybe Brianne, this is going to start to answer some of your question here. These are some of the tools that we use. Some of the most frequent tools that we support. We do a lot of work with Pear Deck, which is a virtual online collaborative interactive slideshow. Flipgrid is probably our most requested tool that I support in our region. It's extremely powerful for assessment and for capturing learning. My Blueprint is something that our province, I think we've bought licenses for every student grade 4 to 12, and it's a digital portfolio program that evolves with the students from grade to grade. Really, really cool stuff you can do on there. Boom cards are a new approval in our region. I'm not sure if they're province-wide. They're sort of neat interactive cards. Book Creator, you can make and publish your own interactive books. Lots of UDL features in there, like text-to-speech and auto-draw and read-to-me skills. Seesaw, kind of similar to Google Classroom, but much easier to capture images or video and to put out assignments that are audio instead of just written, like on Google Classroom. Epic Books has a variety of books that can be read to you. You can sort them by Fountas and Pinnell level, which teachers really like, so you can give reading lists and things like that. Minecraft it's that's a new approval in our province and in our region, but we're going to be rolling that out in September in a number of schools. And the Minecraft Education Edition has some really crazy cool tools that you can use as virtual notebooks and all kinds of pre-made stuff on there. Google Apps for Education, as you probably all know about, we've had it for 7 or 8 years now. It's kind of our number one digital tool that teachers use. It's what we're using to host this session today, obviously. And I'll talk a little bit about the potential there. And then something that we saw a number of people using, there's a program that you can find through the GNSPES space called My Big Blue Button. It's very similar to Google Meet. The only difference is it's got a collaborative whiteboard embedded directly into it. It's got the ability for students to have like a shared document. So it works kind of like Google Meet. You can do some stuff with math equations on there. It's pretty neat. Let's talk a little bit about is Boom Cards free? Yeah, there's parts of Boom Cards, Rima, I hope I'm pronouncing that okay, Rima. Parts of it are free, and there's some that you can download. Like I know that there's a lot of teachers who get bits of it off of Pinterest and things like that. And there's like everything in education. There's paid versions of things as well. And yeah, Gina, Flipgrid fits everything. The Flipgrid was the first digital tool that I was just over the moon about since Google Apps for Education came out. Google Apps for Education was a game changer, I think, for teaching, and then Flipgrid has come along, and it's also a game changer. It constantly blows my mind in the things that you can do with it. So Flipgrid, just as a little, and you're probably noticing that this session is not necessarily a technical session on how to use all of these different things. I will talk a little bit about some of the features of the tools, but I did take a glance at the schedule, and there's all kinds of the technical sessions. I suppose this is a little bit more of a mindset philosophical session. And if you're hoping to come to a really technical session, I'm truly sorry. But like I said, this is the start of a conversation. So hopefully if there's something in here that you'd like to build out in your practice, you can reach out to me and we can put a plan together and work together. So Flipgrid is a tool that lets you capture and share learning through a YouTube-like video production space. It's got all those kind of fun features of TikTok and Snapchat and YouTube. It lets teachers, though, easily share, sort, and view, and it lets you give personalized feedback to students in a variety of ways. It's very, very engaging for students. I've done all kinds of neat things. You can gamify it, so if you can record, you can have students record or capture their videos up to 10 minutes, or you can make it up to 15 or 30 seconds, right? So you give them a constraint. And I had students one time, they had to do a retelling of a book, but they only had 15 seconds. And if you want to see students scurry to cram information in and be completely engaged with something because they know that they're limited, when you add a constraint to it, which is a gamifying mechanic, they're all in. Okay, it's a little bit of trick psychology. Google Docs and grading tool. Google Docs is a real-time collaborative space. It lets you choose close feedback loops by responding to students in the moment. The grading tool is a powerful way to easily host conversations and make observations for student writing. So there's a pane inside of Google Classroom now when you open up a student's assignment, and you can easily flip through the students, all your different students' work that they're working on. You can easily give comments in real time. And what I often tell teachers is, if you're going and this is what I used to do when I was an ELA teacher, my students might be writing a story, and I'd open up 5 of their documents, and I'd read a bit what they've just done, and I'd highlight it, and I'd give it a comment, and then I'd move on to the next one. Then I'd get up and I'd move around, and I'd actually physically, go have a conversation with my students and support them, in real time. And then I go back and open up 5 more. But the grading tool lets you just click the arrows, and you can flick through it one by one and give comments. And again, what I tell teachers is, if you've got sort of a running commentary down the side of your student's document, and they're able to respond to it or resolve issues and interact with you, that's your formative assessment. That's your conversation. That's your observation. That's your real formative data, and it shows you how their learning was affected and how it was driven forward. in that space. So it's a great way to kind of close those feedback loops. It's so far from, you know, those days when you would have students write something, then hand it in, then you would look at it, gives them some feedback, then hand it back and get them to fix it. That doesn't really work. People's brains don't work that way. They're not motivated by something with such a lag of time. Pear Deck, which we're kind of poking at, Ashley is presenting on it. It's a virtual interactive slideshow that students join. So if you've ever used what's it called now? You know, that the name is escaping me, where you Kahoot, you go on and play the game. You log into it very similarly to that, and as you transition from slide to slide, when your screen moves, it'll move on their screen. And there's a teacher view and a student view. So if you're projecting sort of the student view and they write in something, so you could ask them a question or ask them for a true or false or ask them to put a dot or draw a picture. On the screen, they can't see who said what, right? But in the teacher view, you can see every single student's name attached to what they said and what they did. And you tell them that up front. You say, listen, anything you put up here, no one's going to know who said what. But on my screen, I can see exactly every single word you type in real time. I can see exactly what you said. So don't think that you can get away with, you know, typing out the F word or something like that. I'll know exactly who did it. Okay. But up there, it provides this sort of layer of anonymity where they can really give some interesting thoughts and you can have some interesting conversation. And, you know, I'm sure Ashley's going to go into greater detail with it, but it's a really powerful tool and it's quite engaging once they're logged in. And as you move, it moves. Seesaw it's an interactive virtual classroom similar to Google Classroom, but there's a parent communication portal, and it's what I really like about it. I'll show some images of this in a second. Is it's a lot of teachers during remote learning, they wanted just an easy way for students to show a picture or record audio or make a video, right? And Flipgrid certainly does that, but Google Classroom doesn't have a super clean and easy way to just put up a picture. You have to sort of take it and upload it or share. Like it's complex. This lets you do it directly in app. And lastly, My Blueprint. It's a virtual portfolio space that lets you create reflections, set goals, practice skills, develop a sense of self. Teachers can interact, support, provide feedback. And there's just, under the hood of My Blueprint, there's so many things from grades, you know, grade 4 all the way up to grade 12. There's options for, like, if students can fill out like self-reflections or do journals or do research on something, and then they can use points that they get to enter in for draws for like real gift cards from Tim Hortons and Starbucks and stuff like that. It's a really, really neat program with some cool features. They can apply for jobs right from there as they get into high school and research careers, and, you know, do tests on their interests and things like that. Really, really neat application for health class or to use as a portfolio, and it goes with you from grade to grade. Heather, Shobi. Yeah, I haven't used Shobi very much, but so I couldn't speak authoritatively on Shobi. The thing I like about Seesaw the most, though, is that there's a really, really cool like pre-made teacher section, and you can just copy really like all of these different these projects and assignments that teachers have done. So I'm all like, as a teacher, I'm all for like looking for as many shortcuts as possible. And you know, Americans have some really cool ideas when it comes to teaching, and there's a huge repository on there that you can access. And the other thing I really like about Seesaw is it's really easy for you to record a video or record audio instructions as opposed to just writing out text instructions. Okay, so I kind of mentioned about those 4 things that are really important for pedagogy. And the first one that I had said is clarity and intent and communication. Clarity and intent in your communication. So this is kind of just boiling down, like, what would be some good apps to use if you want to focus on clarity. So I guess this is a good time for you to kind of be a little bit reflective on this. So if something that you want to improve is your clarity in instruction, your communication, this is kind of maybe the space for you. So one, you could look at Flipgrid, right? Flipgrid lets you make instructional videos and share learning goals for student submission. So when you make an assignment on Flipgrid, you can actually record a video of yourself telling students exactly what you're looking for, okay? So it's very similar to Screencastify, all right? You can you can, and then the other neat thing that you can do is if when students submit their video to you, so essentially everything has to be submitted as a video response, and they don't have to necessarily be in the video. Just as a side note, they can turn on a whiteboard or put a little emoji over their face. When they submit back to you, you can reply to them, and they're allowed to submit as many times as they want. So you can again give them a nice clear set of instructions that they can watch and review and check over and over again. Seesaw has some of the same capabilities. So, if you're thinking about, a student who, they don't necessarily benefit from, detailed written instruction. Well, you can write out the instructions, and then below that, you can record audio of yourself explaining what the instructions are. And you can also even add another layer and do a little video explaining or showing some exemplars of what you're looking for. So again, you're just trying to hammer home that clear, pointed message at students, and Flipgrid and Seesaw have really good video capabilities for that. And lastly, would be Classroom. So you can design your Google Classroom around, again, I mentioned this before, sort of as a minimalistic learning hub with a touchstone at the beginning. So if you were to use Screencastify or Flipgrid to record a video explaining exactly what you're looking for, you want the students to look on, or to post a video or audio of something that you exactly want students to achieve, these are all places that you can post that. Okay. Now, obviously, I wouldn't try to have all three of these things going on at once or at all times. But maybe, as you transition to a different unit, you try to add another tool to their toolbox. But the goal always is to have a clear communication, something simplistic that's easy for them to digest. Okay. Just to give you a little image of what Flipgrid looks like. When you're using Flipgrid and students are responding, or if you are creating a video for students, this is the production screen. And what pops up is you can see there's a little red button there. When you click that, the first time you click it, there's going to be a countdown, and it'll start recording you. You can set, the default is a 1:30 video, but you can set it as low as 15 seconds and as high as 10 minutes. And you can add text as an overlay to your recording. You can stop and start, so you can have sort of a segmented video. You don't have to do it all in one shot. You can add emojis, you can add pictures, you can do drawings. So I've seen a lot of math teachers, for example, they'll show like how they would physically solve a problem using the drawing tool or the whiteboard. So you can see there's a little white paint can there, so you don't even have to be on the video, or you can record yourself. There's also, if you kind of look over here, there's a little button, a little yellow button, looks like a folded piece of paper. You can open that and you can add a whole bunch of sticky notes around your screen, so that if you have a script you want to read, or if you have something that instructions you want to explain to your students, it's all there. And like I said, the way that Flipgrid works is you make a grid, which is kind of like your classroom, and then you make topics within the grid, which are like your assignments. And every time that your students complete a topic, it's all contained in that one space. And it's very easy to just flick through each video and reply to it. And there's a whole range of ways to reply to it. The other thing I really like about Flipgrid, I've set it up with a lot of teachers in their classrooms. You can just post one single link to your Flipgrid in your Google Classroom, and that's the only link your students ever need to go to. So just to hammer that in, if you get the link for your grid, your classroom grid on Flipgrid, and post it in Google Classroom, your students never need to click on any different link. You never need to repost anything else. When they click on that, it'll open up the login screen, and they'll be in your grid, and they'll be able to choose from all of your assignments, with the most recent one being nested on the top. So a lot of potential there. And I'm just seeing Brian here. Linked Screencastify to my Screencastify video in my Google Classroom in spring. Many students said they could not gain access or watch my videos. That happened a lot. Issue with Screencastify Classroom. It's probably the sharing settings. So when the video is created, you need to share it so that anyone with GNSPES can see it. But the problem from a distance is sometimes when students are logging in, this is something we noticed a lot. When students are logging in from a device, sometimes they're on like their parent's device, and it recognizes their parent's like Gmail account and not the student Gmail account, and it tells them they're locked out. So sometimes the best option is to post the video so that anyone with the link can view, not anyone in GNSPES can view. And that way, it doesn't matter if their parents' Gmail account is accidentally being recognized. So it's one of those weird little troubleshootings that we'd help parents with kind of over and over again. You can save your screencast your YouTube channel. They won't need to worry about sharing. Yes, you can also do that as well. Okay, just being mindful of time here, I'm going to kind of zip in. This is some of the screen options for Seesaw, as I mentioned. So students can easily kind of click a button, and you can click a button as well to share a photo, and this would take a photo right from your device, to make a drawing, to record a video, to upload something, to write a note, to attach a link. And whenever you go to create an assignment, you have the option down there. You can see I put a little picture of it to add voice instructions. So you have the ability to add voice, and I love that because there's so many, like they can replay it. They can sometimes students, when they hear your voice giving them the instructions instead of reading it out on paper, that can make all the difference in their understanding and comprehension of the text. Okay, the next one I talked about was having inclusive programming with high expectations. Okay, so if this is kind of something that you're kind of thinking about working on, Pear Deck, we've talked about it. The guided interactive slideshow. So you can have students, you can give expectations, you can have really clean, quick, tight conversations. When students are plugged into a Pear Deck, you can see exactly what they're saying. My Blueprint. Again, I've mentioned that before. There's gamified aspects, but it's a great space that lets you really kind of have students think about their learning, and they can set goals for themselves on there. And I'll show you kind of a little picture of what it looks like in a second, but it's a really, really great space for metacognition, a great space for self-reflection, and a great space to outline your expectations for students and where you want them to sort of grow from next. And then G Suite, it allows for kind of multivariate distribution of tasks. So if you have an assignment in Google Classroom, you have the drop-down option to assign it to your whole class by default. Or if you just want 5 or 6 students to work on a very specific task, you can just assign that to those 5 students. Okay. And so there's a lot of power there. And again, like I talked about with closing those feedback loops and having those running conversations in the comment section of a Google document, that's a great way, again, to outline sort of your expectations and really kind of work with students where they are. This is just an example of what my blueprint looks like. And again, this is the view of a grade 6 student's portfolio. Once they get to grade 7, it takes on a more of a kind of professional sheen. So the program actually evolves as they go up in grades, but their information is retained, and the things that they've worked on year to year is retained. But you can see here, there's kind of a book report. They've got a link to an essay here. They've got character traits about themselves, and every little section that they post up here is part of their personal portfolio. But you as a teacher have the ability to ask them questions, to assign things to them, to stimulate conversation and comment on things. So this version sort of looks a little bit like Pinterest, but you can find your My Blueprint account. It should be on everybody's GNSPES launch page. Okay, it's like a little bee, a little blue bee. Really powerful tool. And then embedded formative assessment. So we have all kinds of great tools that you can. Did I say you used it with Esl students? Did I say that? No, I don't think I did. But I mean, you certainly could use it. I have done some work with using Flipgrid with Esl students just for language practice, and that's been very powerful because they can record and then re-listen to themselves speaking and doing conversational pieces and talking about their learning. Okay, so just to jump back into embedded formative assessment. So Google, again, I mentioned this before, but it lets you do real-time feedback, converse with students in real time, talk with them in the moment, on top of their work as it's happening. Flipgrid and Seesaw is a contained assessment space for all assignments, and you are able to give video feedback to them. You're able to make rubrics. You're able to give text feedback, all, some, or none. And again, Pear Deck, you can share and give students multiple choice answers, written feedback, drawing submissions, and like I said, they're anonymous on the screen, but recorded in a teacher space. And
Adam, I just wanted to mention that Gina had a question asking if there was an easy way to embed or link Seesaw to one's Google Classroom.
I've had that question before, and it's I mean, you can I don't really think it's a clean transition. It's the conversation I've had with a number of teachers is it's kind of an either or thing. Like I would go with either Google Classroom or Seesaw, or I would, do some things on Google Classroom and some things on Seesaw. It's one of those choices. A lot of younger grades seem to enjoy Seesaw just because it works as a parent communication portal as well as a student activity space. Some teachers just use it for parent communication and showing some of students' work as well. They don't use it for assignments at all. So yeah, I'm not aware of like a really clean way to merge them together. Just to show you kind of a little shot of Pear Deck. This is so in the box there in the left-hand corner, this is what the student would see. So you're asking them a question about a picture, and then they have a little screen where they can type things in. But from the teacher view, you can see every single person's comment, and there's little stars by them. So if you were to click a star up on their screen, they would just see the ones that you starred. So you might say, okay, well, here's 3 points that are really interesting that people brought up. Let's discuss this out a little bit more. Okay. If you ask them a multiple choice, you get a bar graph of everybody's answers, and that's just for you. And what I've done is, and worked on with teachers, is I'm walking around on my iPad with this teacher view open, so I can see what every student's saying, but projected on the screen is that safe, anonymous presentation where you can't see what anyone else is saying. You're just getting the instructions or the things. Okay, so very, very powerful tool. And the last one here is a nourishing community, and I am going to try to wrap up here and be mindful of time. And I mentioned this before, but I think this is so important, is in all of this, especially in this this weird pandemic time, none of it really works if you don't have a support network or a nourishing community or a group of people that you can turn to, or someone that you can talk to, or a place where you kind of can belong. Because like I said, that number one thing that Hattie says is about collective teacher efficacy. And that's the number one thing that will make achievement and success happen in your students more than anything else. And what it means is it's your sense and your perception of how well you can actually impact change and how well you can achieve as a teacher is directly related to that. Students pick up on that perception that you have on yourself. School cultures that have a strong perception of, we're a strong school, we're strong in leadership, we're able to, really get things going. That is a very, very powerful feeling, okay, and a very, very powerful promoter of success. But it comes from a nourishing community, okay? So if you're looking for a nourishing community, if you don't seem to be surrounded by a nourishing community, I encourage you to jump into Twitter and the global PLN. You going on Twitter, there's groups, there's hashtags, there's local educators. It's an endless stream of information and ideas, and I would encourage you to mine into that. There's tons of people that you would find right on the Summer Learning Academy hashtag. Every school under the inclusion policy has to work to set up a teaching support team. I would encourage you to tap into that, to try and work from that, or to grow with that, or develop that, because that's designed to help kind of build that collective teacher efficacy. And then your staff as well. And I know not all staffs are the same. Some staffs are, I've worked in schools where the staffs are wonderful. It's a real team. There's a real sense of kind of everyone's rowing together. And I've worked on other staffs where it's more about the teachers, and it's more about, all the problems, and it's more about, what they don't like and what's wrong, and everything's gone to heck. And that's not fun. And students feel that, and no one gets anywhere. And what I would suggest is that if you're in a situation like that, which is no fun, it's uncomfortable, it's very stressful, you reach out to like the new teachers in your school, and you look for ways to support them. And when I started teaching, it was the teachers, it was the more senior teachers who took the time to support me, and that kind of love and tenderness really helped me in my first years teaching. And we don't always give new teachers the most cushy positions in the school. So reach out to the new teachers and try to support them, and find, at your school, find your person, the person who you collaborate well with, who you work well with, who you respect professionally, right? And I would always encourage to avoid kind of those black holes, to try to be a positive net force in your school, because really, like we say, is that image of ourselves, that the promotion of success with our students is so important, because it has such a high efficacy on achievement. So one thing I will do, I have added to this, all those tools I talked about, we did a whole bunch of PD sessions directly on these tools. So if you want to go deeper, I put a link to a PD session on Flipgrid, on Seesaw, on Google Classroom, on My Blueprint. So these are all hyper embedded links with dedicated PD videos, right, that you could watch to get a little bit deeper if there's anything else you want to go on. And obviously, I said the start of a conversation, if there's anything you want to go deeper on, please reach out to me. And lastly, just to kind of wrap up here for some final considerations, some things that I would think about going into September. One, obviously keep your, I wrote minimalistic wrong here, keep your online learning hub clean and minimalistic. Set up a communique with parents early and often. Integrate tools earlier in the year and develop touchstones, like an instructional video at the start of the week. And try to employ low and no tech habits with students that could be transferred to home. Okay, so things like, go outside and find an object that you can write a story about, or, order these things, or like try to find something that could be that you can do in the classroom, but let's say that school gets canceled, you could easily transition that to a home environment. Okay, and we've kind of touched upon a lot of these things. And then the last thing that I would say, and I really believe in this, and I think it's so important for our province, it's very easy. We live in a culture right now where it's really easy to be down on everything. We live in a culture where it's really easy to criticize everything. And I'm not saying to just be kind of a blind sheep and let everything roll over you, but in your school, in your educational environment, promoting culture and community first and teaching second will have benefits on your institution as a whole. So if you can work to be a positive force, if you can work to promote the good, to promote these good ideals, to support others, and not bring anyone down or be those black holes, that will be very, very powerful. I know it's really, really hard to do, because sometimes it always feels like no matter what, we're fighting an uphill battle against things. But promoting that collective teacher efficacy and trying to make your community a positive place and your culture a positive place, irrespective of what's going on around you, will have benefits to your students. Okay, that's my kind of jam. I went over by about 5 minutes. I'm really sorry about that, and I kind of blabbed on a little bit. Well, I guess with that, if there's anything else, please feel free to contact me with anything. I'll write my email in here. It's just hintonay@ginespez.ca. So if at any time during the year there's something you want to run by me, just feel free to pop me off an email or start a chat conversation in Gmail. I'm more than happy to help.